The maid watched over a sleeping millionaire and overheard a call that changed who he protected forever. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Mia had always been a quiet, humble woman. She had grown up in the small town of Maplewood, far from the glamorous world of billionaires and CEOs. After years of working odd jobs, she finally landed a position as a maid for one of the wealthiest men in the city, Alex Evans. Her duties were simple: clean the house, prepare meals, and make sure Alex's life went smoothly. But despite his riches, Alex was a man whose presence seemed as cold as the marble floors in his mansion. Mia had seen many faces of the wealthy, but none quite like his. He seemed to live in a world where emotions didn't matter, where people were just tools, and kindness was a foreign language. But for Mia, kindness was all she had. As she walked into Alex's bedroom that night, she found him lying still in his king-sized bed, the covers pulled up to his neck. The sound of his steady breathing was the only noise filling the room. Mia took a moment to gather her thoughts. She had been tasked with watching over him while he slept, just another part of her job. But as she stood there, looking at the man who was so far removed from her world, she felt an odd sense of responsibility. She checked his vitals and adjusted his blankets, careful not to disturb his sleep. It was just another night, until the phone rang. Mia froze, unsure whether she should answer it. But the phone kept ringing, and out of habit, she picked it up. "Alex, it's time. We have to make a decision," a woman's voice said on the other end. Mia's heart raced as she tried to remain quiet, listening in. "I know, but I'm not sure I'm ready. What if it's too late?" Alex's voice came through soft, yet filled with an uncharacteristic vulnerability. "You have to. We've already come this far. No turning back now." Mia's grip tightened around the phone as she realized the weight of the conversation. She had never heard Alex speak like this, so unsure, so human. The words that followed were unsettling. "If anything happens to me, make sure she's taken care of. I won't leave her with nothing." Mia's heart skipped a beat as she tried to process the conversation. Who was he talking about? Who was she? The phone call ended abruptly, and Mia stood there, her mind racing with questions. The man she had seen as distant and unfeeling was now someone she realized had fears, had someone he cared about, someone he was willing to protect. She couldn't shake the feeling that the conversation was a turning point, not just for Alex, but for herself as well. Mia put the phone back and stepped away from the bed, her mind still spinning. She had overheard something that she wasn't supposed to hear, but it felt like her life had just changed in some small, yet significant way. The man she was working for, her employer, wasn't the cold, indifferent figure she had once thought him to be. He had a heart, and she knew, in that moment, that she was somehow a part of his life now, a life that was far more complicated than she could have ever imagined. Mia couldn't stop replaying the conversation she overheard, her thoughts swirling with confusion and curiosity. She had never seen Alex like this, vulnerable, human, and deeply concerned about someone else. The phone call had left her with so many unanswered questions. Who was the woman Alex was speaking to? Who was the person he cared about so much that he was willing to leave everything behind for her? As the days passed, Mia found herself more and more entangled in the mystery of the man she worked for. She couldn't shake the feeling that her role in his life was changing. She was no longer just a maid to him, but something more, someone who knew a secret, someone who had witnessed a side of him he usually kept hidden. The next morning, Mia entered Alex's study to find him sitting at his desk, a stack of papers in front of him. He didn't acknowledge her at first, too absorbed in whatever he was reading. It was a familiar scene. Alex always seemed to be busy with something, always lost in his work. Mia moved quietly to the corner of the room, dusting the bookshelves, trying not to disturb him. She had grown used to his silence, to the way he kept his distance from her and everyone else. But today, something felt different. As she moved about the room, she caught sight of a photo frame on the desk. It was a picture of Alex with a woman and a young girl. The woman had long dark hair, and the girl was smiling brightly, her arms wrapped around Alex's neck. It was a family portrait. Mia's heart skipped a beat. Could this be the woman Alex had been speaking about on the phone? The one he was so desperate to protect? The thought lingered in her mind as she continued with her chores, the image of the woman and child stuck in her thoughts. As she worked, she kept glancing back at Alex, wondering if he had any idea what she had overheard. Should she confront him about it? Would he even care? But Mia wasn't sure she was ready for that. She had only been working for him for a few months, and though their interactions were limited, she had grown fond of him in her own way. He wasn't like the others she had worked for, distant, cold, and demanding. There was something about him that seemed lonely, something hidden beneath his stoic exterior. As Mia finished her work, she found herself standing by the door, hesitating. Alex looked up at her, his expression unreadable. "Is there anything else you need, Mia?" he asked, his voice cool, but not unkind. She felt a lump form in her throat. She had never been this close to him before. It was just a simple question, but it felt like the weight of the world was behind it. "No, Mr. Evans. I'm finished for today," she replied, her voice steady, though inside, her emotions were anything but calm. She turned to leave, but before she reached the door, Alex's voice stopped her. "Mia," he called softly. She turned back, surprised. "I know it's not easy working here," he said, his eyes softening just for a moment. "But I appreciate everything you do." Mia felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words, and for the first time since she started working for him, she saw a glimpse of the man beneath the layers of wealth and power. The man who cared, who wasn't just about business. But before she could respond, Alex's phone rang again. The moment was gone, and she was left standing in the room, wondering if she would ever truly understand the complexities of the man she worked for. As the days went on, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that Alex was hiding something from her. Every time she tried to ask, he would retreat back into his cold, businesslike persona. Yet, somehow, the connection they had was undeniable. Mia didn't know what the future held, but she was certain of one thing. Whatever was going on with Alex, she was becoming more and more involved in it than she ever expected. Mia couldn't shake the unease she felt as the days passed. She was slowly being drawn deeper into Alex's world, a world full of wealth, secrets, and hidden emotions. It was late one afternoon when Mia found herself in Alex's study again, dusting the shelves as she always did. She had learned to navigate his mansion with ease, but today, something felt different. Alex had been quieter than usual, distant, almost as if something was weighing on his mind. She had heard him on the phone earlier, speaking in hushed tones, and when she entered his study, he was sitting in front of his desk, staring at the wall. For a moment, Mia considered leaving the room, but something in her made her stay. She had to know what was going on with him. As she continued her work, she noticed the stack of papers on his desk, the same papers she had seen days earlier. They were still there, untouched, as if Alex hadn't even bothered to look at them. She could sense his frustration, but also a deep sadness, one that was hidden behind his composed exterior. Mia had seen him like this before, but never to this extent. It was as though the weight of his world was too much to bear. Finally, Mia couldn't stand the silence any longer. She took a deep breath and spoke. "Mr. Evans, is everything okay?" Alex looked up at her, his eyes momentarily flickering with surprise before he regained his composure. "Everything's fine, Mia," he replied, his voice flat. "Just a lot of work to do." But Mia didn't believe him. There was something in his eyes, something that told her he was lying. "You don't have to pretend with me," Mia said softly, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never spoken to him like this before, but something inside her made her feel like he needed to hear it. "I know you're going through something. I can see it in your eyes." Alex's expression faltered for a moment, and for the briefest of seconds, Mia saw a crack in his armor. "I'm not used to people seeing through me," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Mia hesitated, unsure of what to say next. She had no idea what was really going on with him, but she knew one thing. He wasn't the man he appeared to be. There was more to him, and she was starting to feel it more and more. She walked over to his desk, slowly, cautiously. "You don't have to go through this alone," she said gently, her voice barely audible. "You've been through so much already. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here." Alex stared at her for a long moment, as though considering her words. Then, with a deep sigh, he stood up from his desk and walked over to the window, his back to her. "You don't understand," he said, his voice filled with frustration. "I can't let anyone in. It's not safe for them. Not for me, and definitely not for anyone else. Mia frowned, confused by his words. What was he talking about? What was so dangerous about letting someone into his life? Before she could ask, Alex turned around and faced her, his expression hardening. I've made a lot of mistakes, Mia. A lot of people have suffered because of me. I can't change that. Mia's heart ached for him, and she stepped closer. You don't have to carry all that by yourself, she said softly. We all make mistakes. It's what we do after that matters. For a moment, Alex's eyes softened, but then the hardness returned. It's not that simple, he muttered, walking back to his desk and sitting down again. Mia stood there for a moment, watching him. She wanted to help, wanted to make him see that he didn't have to be so alone. But she also knew that some things couldn't be fixed with just words. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was starting to get through to him, little by little. As she finished her work that day, Mia couldn't stop thinking about Alex. She had seen a side of him that most people never would. The man who appeared so cold and unfeeling was, in reality, someone who was deeply scarred, someone who had been carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders for far too long. And in that moment, Mia realized that her role in his life was changing. She wasn't just his maid anymore. She was becoming someone he trusted, someone he could turn to, even if he didn't realize it yet. As she walked out of the study, she glanced back at Alex, sitting alone at his desk, the weight of his past hanging over him. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing. She would be there for him, no matter what. Mia had never seen Alex quite like this before. Over the past few days, the tension in his mansion had been palpable. His usual cold, distant demeanor was replaced with something much heavier, an air of unresolved conflict that seemed to hang over everything. Mia found herself in his study again, this time dusting the shelves quietly as he worked on his computer. He hadn't spoken much lately, and when he did, his words were brief, almost as if he were keeping everyone at arm's length. Mia couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling that something was terribly wrong. It was during one of these silent moments that Alex spoke. Mia, I need to ask you something, he said, his voice low, not looking at her. She looked up from her work, her heart suddenly racing. Of course, Mr. Evans. What is it? She replied, careful to keep her tone neutral, though she could feel the tension rising between them. Alex hesitated before meeting her gaze, his eyes shadowed with something Mia couldn't quite place. I'm making a big decision. It's about my company, my family, he began, his voice tight with an emotion he rarely showed. And I need to know that I can trust you. Mia's pulse quickened. Trust me with what? She asked, a little more cautiously now. Alex stood up from his desk, walking over to the window, his back turned to her. I've made a lot of mistakes, Mia. My life isn't as perfect as it may seem from the outside. I'm not just a businessman. I have people I've hurt, choices I've regretted, and a legacy I'm not sure I can fix. Mia listened, trying to piece together the man she thought she knew. She had always seen him as an impenetrable figure, someone who had everything, yet felt so distant from the world around him. Now, standing there with his back to her, she saw something different, a man who was struggling, burdened by the very empire he had built. I don't know if I can ever make things right, Alex continued, his voice barely above a whisper. But I need to do something. I need to protect what's left of my family. Mia's heart went out to him. She had never expected to see him vulnerable, and yet here he was, laying his emotions bare. You don't have to carry all of this alone, Mr. Evans, Mia said softly, her voice steady despite the intensity of the moment. Alex turned to face her, his expression unreadable. I know, he replied quietly, but I'm not sure how to fix everything. There's so much at stake. If I make the wrong move, it could ruin everything. Mia took a step toward him, her mind racing with everything she had just heard. What do you need from me? She asked, her voice full of concern. Alex looked at her, his eyes searching hers as if weighing something important. I need someone to help me, he said, his words slow and deliberate. Someone who isn't involved in the business side of things, someone who can look at this situation without bias. Mia's breath caught in her throat. She had never imagined that Alex would ask her for something like this. She was just the maid, just someone who cleaned his house, cooked his meals, and made sure things ran smoothly. But now, he was asking for her help in something far more personal. I'm not sure I can do this, Alex, Mia said, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I'm the right person for this. Alex took a deep breath, his gaze softening for a moment. "I trust you, Mia," he said quietly. "I know I've been distant, but I'm asking you now to be there for me. I need you to help me make the right decision." Mia stood there for a moment, taking in his words. She had never felt so conflicted. She wanted to help him, wanted to be the person he could lean on, but she didn't know if she was ready for what that might mean. She had only just started to understand the depths of Alex's struggles, and now she was being asked to help him navigate them. "I don't know what this will mean for either of us," Mia said slowly, her voice full of uncertainty. "But I'll do my best to help you." Alex nodded, his expression softening even more. "Thank you, Mia. I don't know what I'd do without you." As the days passed, Mia found herself increasingly involved in Alex's world, stepping into a role she never expected to play. The lines between her duties as a maid and her growing connection with Alex were starting to blur. She was no longer just a servant in his home. She was becoming someone he trusted, someone who was beginning to see the real Alex Evans, not just the cold, unfeeling billionaire. The journey they were about to embark on together was uncertain, but Mia knew one thing for sure. Her life was about to change in ways she never imagined. Mia woke up early the next day, her mind still reeling from the conversation she had with Alex the previous evening. She had agreed to help him, but as she prepared for the day, she couldn't shake the weight of the responsibility that now rested on her shoulders. The mansion was still quiet, the house staff moving about their usual tasks, but Mia's thoughts were elsewhere. She couldn't help but wonder what Alex was truly facing. What was it that had caused him to open up to her in the way he did? Was he truly ready to trust her, or was this just another part of his complicated world? She couldn't deny the pull she felt toward him, the growing connection that had started from the moment she had overheard his phone call. It was strange. She had never been this close to someone so powerful, yet Alex seemed so much more human now, more vulnerable than she could have ever imagined. As Mia walked through the grand hallways of the mansion, she caught a glimpse of Alex in the distance, standing by the large windows in his study. The morning light filtered through the glass, casting long shadows on the polished floors. He was alone, staring out at the city below, lost in thought. She hesitated for a moment, unsure of whether she should approach him or let him be. But something inside urged her to move forward. She knocked softly on the doorframe before stepping into the room. Alex didn't turn around at first, but she could see the tension in his posture. "Mr. Evans," Mia said gently, "is there anything you need help with today?" Alex finally turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "I don't know where to start, Mia," he said quietly, his voice tinged with frustration. "There are so many things I need to fix, so many things I've neglected. I've spent my whole life building this empire, but I've lost sight of the things that really matter." Mia's heart ached for him. She had never imagined Alex to be this conflicted, this unsure of himself. She could see the struggle in his eyes, the weight of the decisions he had to make. "You don't have to do this alone," she said softly, stepping closer to him. "You have people who care about you, people who are willing to help, if you let them." Alex looked at her, his gaze softening just a little. "I've never really let anyone close, Mia," he admitted. "I've always believed that I could handle everything on my own. But now I'm not so sure." Mia nodded, understanding his hesitation. "You don't have to carry the world on your shoulders," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "Sometimes, letting people in can make all the difference." Alex was silent for a moment, his eyes studying her face as if trying to read her intentions. "I never thought I would be asking for help," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm starting to realize that maybe I don't have all the answers." Mia took a deep breath, her own thoughts swirling. She had never expected to be in this position, being the one that Alex turned to for guidance. But here she was, standing before him, offering a support she had never imagined giving. "We all need help sometimes," she said softly. "No one can do everything alone." Alex finally nodded, his shoulders sagging slightly as if a small burden had been lifted. "Maybe you're right," he said quietly. "Maybe it's time to stop trying to do everything myself." As Mia left the study, she couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. For the first time, Alex seemed like he was willing to change, willing to let go of his need for control. And as for Mia, she was beginning to realize that this wasn't just about helping Alex anymore. It was about finding a connection that went beyond the walls of his mansion, beyond the roles they had been given. It was about discovering what really mattered: love, trust, and the willingness to be vulnerable. As she walked down the hallway, her heart felt lighter than it had in days. Mia knew the journey ahead would not be easy, but she was ready to face it. With Alex, she was beginning to understand that sometimes the most unexpected moments led to the greatest changes. And for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. Mia was starting to feel like a part of Alex's world, though she knew it was only a small part. She had never imagined that being a maid could lead to such an unexpected turn in her life. It was strange, this new dynamic between them. Just a few weeks ago, she had been nothing more than a figure in the background of his grand estate. Now, she was becoming someone he trusted, someone who he turned to for help, someone who was starting to see the man behind the wealth and the power. She couldn't help but wonder, though, what this new connection between them meant. Could it be something more than just the simple exchange of trust? Would they remain in these roles forever, or was there a possibility of something deeper? That evening, Alex asked her to join him for dinner. It was the first time he had invited her to sit with him at the dining table instead of serving him from the side. Mia hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to approach the situation. But when she saw the genuine invitation in his eyes, she knew this was important. She agreed, her heart racing as she sat down across from him. The dining room, with its long, polished table and grand chandeliers, felt almost too big for just the two of them. The silence between them wasn't awkward, but it was filled with anticipation. As they ate, the conversation began to flow more easily. Alex spoke about his childhood, his ambitions, and the mistakes he had made along the way. For the first time, Mia saw him as a man rather than a boss or a wealthy CEO. He was just Alex, someone who had been through struggles, just like everyone else. "I never thought I'd be sitting here, talking like this," Alex said, his voice softening as he looked at her. "I've spent so much time building this empire, but I've neglected the things that really matter. I've pushed everyone away, even the people who cared about me." Mia nodded, understanding what he was saying. She had seen the way he lived his life, the way he kept everyone at arm's length. But now, she saw a different side of him, one that was more vulnerable, more open to the possibility of change. "It's not too late to change," Mia said gently, her voice filled with empathy. "You don't have to keep everything to yourself. There are people who care, people who want to help." Alex met her gaze, his eyes searching hers as if looking for something. "I'm afraid," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Afraid of what might happen if I let someone in again. Afraid that I'll lose everything I've worked so hard for." Mia reached across the table, placing her hand over his. It was a simple gesture, but it meant more than words could express. "You don't have to lose everything," she said softly. "You just have to trust that not everything is about control. Sometimes, letting go is the hardest, but most rewarding thing you can do." Alex's eyes softened, and for a moment, Mia saw a flicker of hope in them. It was as though a weight had been lifted, even if just for a moment. He wasn't completely ready to let go of his fears, but Mia could see that he was starting to believe it was possible. The evening ended quietly, but something had shifted between them. It wasn't a dramatic change, but it was real. As Mia returned to her room later that night, she found herself reflecting on everything that had happened. She had never imagined this kind of connection with Alex. She had come to work as his maid, but now, she was becoming someone more, a confidant, a friend, and possibly something even deeper. Mia didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she felt a sense of belonging in this strange, luxurious world. It wasn't about the money or the status anymore. It was about the person Alex was becoming and the role she was starting to play in his life. Mia couldn't help but feel a sense of unease that lingered in the air. After their dinner the other night, everything had changed. Alex was opening up in ways she hadn't imagined possible. They had crossed a line in their relationship, one where she was no longer just his maid, and he was no longer just her employer. But the uncertainty was still there, like a cloud hovering over them, and Mia wasn't sure how to navigate it. She had been walking around the mansion the next morning, her thoughts filled with questions about what would happen next. Would Alex continue to let her into his world, or was this just a passing phase? She couldn't ignore the feelings that had begun to grow inside her. It was more than just curiosity about his life. It was something deeper. It was about the connection they shared, the bond that seemed to be forming despite all the odds. As she entered the kitchen, she found herself looking at the clock more often than usual. Her shift was almost over, but there was something that kept her there, something pulling her to stay. It wasn't just the work, but the uncertainty of what Alex was thinking. The mansion was quiet, as usual. The staff had all gone about their daily tasks, but there was a sense of tension that had taken root in the household. Mia couldn't escape the feeling that Alex was hiding something. She had seen it in his eyes, the unease, the hesitation, like there was something he wasn't telling her. The thought made her heart race. She knew she had to get answers, but how could she ask him? Would he even open up to her again? The more she thought about it, the more she realized she couldn't just sit by. She had come to care about Alex in a way she hadn't expected. He wasn't just the cold, distant CO anymore. He was a man with a past, a future, and fears just like everyone else. She couldn't ignore the pull she felt toward him. With a deep breath, Mia made up her mind. She would confront him. She couldn't keep guessing, couldn't live in the uncertainty any longer. As she walked towards his study, her heart pounded in her chest. What was she going to say? How would he react? The door to the study was slightly ajar, and she could hear the sound of papers rustling inside. Alex was sitting at his desk, his back to her, engrossed in whatever he was working on. He didn't seem to notice her approach, so she gently knocked on the doorframe. Alex looked up, his eyes narrowing slightly as he saw her standing there. "Mia," he said, his voice calm, but there was an underlying tension. "Is everything all right?" Mia hesitated for a moment before speaking, her voice steady but filled with determination. "Mr. Evans, I need to know what's going on. I can see that something's wrong. You've been distant, and I'm not sure where I stand anymore." Alex's expression hardened, and for a brief moment, Mia feared she had overstepped. But instead of brushing her off, Alex leaned back in his chair, studying her for a long moment. "I didn't want to involve you in any of this," he said quietly, "but I'm afraid I don't have much choice anymore." Mia's heart skipped a beat as he spoke. "Involve me in what?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I've made mistakes, Mia. Some things in my life have spiraled out of control. And now, I'm facing consequences that I'm not sure I can handle on my own." Mia stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. "You don't have to handle everything by yourself," she said softly. "I'm here for you." Alex's eyes softened for a moment, but then his expression turned serious. "I'm not sure how much I can tell you," he said, his voice low. "But the truth is, I'm not the man you think I am. I've been hiding parts of myself for a long time. And now, the past is catching up with me." Mia felt a pang of sympathy in her chest. She could see the struggle in his eyes, the vulnerability he had been hiding. She didn't know what was going on, but she could feel the weight of it pressing down on him. "You don't have to carry all of this alone," Mia said, her voice filled with understanding. "Whatever it is, I'm here. You don't have to shut me out." For a long moment, Alex said nothing. He just looked at her, his gaze searching, as though trying to decide whether to trust her with the truth. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've been running from my past, Mia, but I can't do it anymore. I need help. I need someone to help me face it." The words hit Mia like a wave, and she stepped closer to him, her hand reaching out gently to touch his. "You have me, Alex," she said softly. "You're not alone in this." Alex's eyes met hers, and for the first time in a long while, Mia saw a flicker of hope in his gaze. It wasn't a solution, but it was a beginning. The start of something real, something that could change both of their lives forever. Mia stood in the doorway, her heart pounding in her chest. Alex had just confessed something that made everything feel real. It wasn't just about the work, the house, or the wealth anymore. It was about them, about what they had started to build, even if neither of them had fully realized it yet. She had always known there was something more to him, something deeper that he kept locked away. Now, she could see the cracks in his carefully constructed walls, and for the first time, she felt like he was letting her in. "I've been running from my past, Mia," Alex repeated, his voice quieter now. "And I thought I could fix it on my own. But I can't. Not anymore." Mia stepped into the room, moving closer to him. The air between them felt charged, filled with a mix of uncertainty and a strange kind of hope. She wasn't sure what this moment meant for them, but she knew one thing. It was the beginning of something important. "You don't have to fix everything alone," Mia said, her voice soft but firm. She reached out, her hand resting on his, grounding him in the present. "You've already started, just by being honest with yourself. That's the hardest part." Alex looked at her, his eyes searching hers as if looking for something. For a moment, he said nothing, as though he were deciding whether or not to trust her further. Finally, he spoke, his voice steady, but filled with the weight of his confession. I've hurt people, Mia. I've hurt the people closest to me. And now, I'm paying the price. But I don't want to lose you too. His words hit her like a wave, but Mia didn't step back. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned forward, her heart open. You're not going to lose me, Alex, she said, her voice steady and reassuring. I'm here. I've got your back. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. For the first time, Alex's walls seemed to crumble a little more. His expression softened, his gaze lingering on her face as if he were seeing her in a new light. I don't deserve someone like you, he whispered, almost to himself. You deserve more than I can give. Mia shook her head. No one's perfect, Alex. I don't need you to be. I just need you to be real with me. There was a silence between them then, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was a quiet moment of understanding, of recognition that something significant had shifted. Alex's hand, still resting in hers, tightened slightly, as if he was holding on to the only anchor he had left. I don't know what the future holds, he said, looking down at their hands. But I know that I don't want to do this alone anymore. Mia squeezed his hand, a smile tugging at the corner of her lips. You won't be alone, she said softly. You don't have to be. In the days that followed, things between Mia and Alex began to change. The distance between them shrank, replaced by moments of quiet intimacy, small touches, shared glances, and conversations that went beyond the surface. Mia had always been aware of the difference in their worlds. But now, it seemed that those differences didn't matter. What mattered was the connection they had started to build, the trust they were beginning to share. Alex still had a long road ahead of him, but Mia was determined to be there, by his side, no matter what. She had seen him at his most vulnerable, and she wasn't going anywhere. Slowly, they started to take the first steps toward a new chapter. A chapter where Alex wasn't just the cold, distant billionaire he had once been, and Mia wasn't just the maid in his mansion. Together, they were building something that neither of them had expected but both had come to crave. A partnership rooted in trust, honesty, and a shared understanding of what it meant to face life's challenges together. Mia stood at the edge of the balcony, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky was a rich blend of oranges and purples, a perfect end to a day that had felt different from all the others. She had spent the entire afternoon with Alex, going over the details of his business, helping him make decisions that were no longer just about profits or power, but about his future, about their future. It wasn't the kind of work she was used to, but somehow, it felt right. The air was cool, a gentle breeze brushing against her skin as she thought about everything that had happened. She was no longer just a maid in his house. She was a partner, a confidant, someone who had become integral to the decisions he made. Alex had begun to lean on her more, trusting her instincts, valuing her opinions. And in return, Mia had started to see him as more than just the billionaire CEO. She saw the man beneath it all, the one who was willing to change, to open up to a life he had spent so long running from. Mia? Alex's voice broke through her thoughts, and she turned to find him standing in the doorway. He had that same, familiar look in his eyes, the one that made her heart skip a beat. Can I talk to you for a moment? Mia smiled, stepping away from the railing. Of course. What's on your mind? Alex walked over, his hands tucked into his pockets as he looked out over the city. I've been thinking a lot about everything, he began, his voice steady but filled with something deeper. About us. About where we're headed. Mia's heart raced slightly, but she kept her expression calm, waiting for him to continue. I never thought I would be in this position, Alex continued, his gaze focused on the city lights below. I've spent my whole life building walls around myself, around everything I've worked for. But with you, it feels like I'm finally starting to let those walls down. Mia's breath caught in her throat. She had always known that Alex was a man of great ambition, but she never imagined he would open up like this, not to her. I don't know what the future holds, Alex said, his voice softer now, but I want you to be a part of it. I want us to be a team, not just in business, but in life. Mia felt her heart swell at his words. She had never expected this, never imagined that she would be standing here with him, sharing this moment. I've never been one to believe in fate, Alex continued, turning to face her. But meeting you, It feels like everything's fallen into place. You've helped me see things I couldn't see before. Mia reached out, taking his hand gently in hers. She had always known there was something special between them, but hearing him say it aloud made everything feel so much more real. I want to be there for you, Alex, Mia said softly, her voice steady and sincere. Not just for the business, but for everything. Whatever comes next, I'll be with you. Alex squeezed her hand, his eyes searching hers. You mean more to me than you know, he said quietly. And I want to make sure that we're both ready for whatever happens next. Together, the silence between them was comfortable, filled with a new understanding. Mia didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt certain that whatever it was, they would face it together. As the last rays of the sun faded, Mia and Alex stood there, side by side, ready to step into the next chapter of their lives. It wasn't about wealth, power, or status anymore. It was about the bond they had created, the trust they had built, and the future they would face together, united in ways neither of them had ever imagined.